Welcome to Distress to Joyful, Bailey's Way. I'm your host, Bailey Raber, here to enlighten you and the rest of the world about one of the most misunderstood mental health disorders out there, bipolar disorder. In each episode, we'll learn more about my personal journey with bipolar 2 disorder, how I've struggled with it, and how I've learned to overcome those struggles. Together, we'll laugh, we'll cry, and most importantly, we'll have fun. You'll leave each episode feeling hopeful and stocked full of useful information on how you can better yourself and the world around you. Hello, friends! I am so excited to tell you that finals are done for this semester of school. It makes me so happy because I just feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I'm not struggling and rushing to try to get shit done by due dates. I feel so good. And I ended the semester with a 4.0 again, which is just really satisfying for the little perfectionist in me. Unfortunately, that's what it is. But yeah, so I have more time to devote to you guys now, and I'm super excited about that because I'm taking a break from school this summer. Well, from college. I'll still be doing school as in my Hindi lessons, but yeah, more or less I have more time for y'all and I'm excited about it. Also, I just wanted to let you guys know that I was recently interviewed by Tiana White, who is the host of the Unpacked Energy podcast. And oh my God, y'all, it was such a fun interview. We talked about dating and bipolar disorder, which just goes hand in hand with the last two episodes, being about me, my partner, and my bipolar disorder. So I really recommend you go check it out. Tiana is so fun. We had such a blast with this episode, and I think you guys will like it. It builds on last week's stuff, but it's great. And Tiana's also awesome too. I love her podcast. She is doing things like I'm doing, just raw, vulnerable, open, and spreading awareness about mental health. So she and I are on the same page. We're family now, and I love it. And you guys, I promise, will love this episode too. So you can find the link in the show notes. I'll put a couple different links to different platforms that she's on. Or you could just search Unpacked Energy Podcast on your favorite listening platform, and you should be able to find it there. The episode is titled Dating and Bipolar Disorder, so that'll be a no-brainer. All right, so let's move into today's episode. We are going to talk about things that I wish my parents would have done while I was growing up, when I received my bipolar 2 diagnosis, and also now that I'm an independent adult. So I do think that the timing is super right for this one, as Mother's Day has just recently passed for the year, and Father's Day will be coming up next month in June. And these days aren't easy for everybody. The last two have not been easy for me. This year's been a lot better, as my partner Monish's parents have kind of taken over a role for me, as I really don't have a relationship with the parents that raised me. So again, this year has been a little bit easier, but it's still hard talking about things with my parents. And the more I talk about this subject, like my non-existent relationship with my parents and the past one, the more I learn that so many other people have had the exact same or very similar experiences as I have. And while that's comforting, that's also problematic. It's a double-edged sword. It's comforting to know I'm not alone, that other people have struggled in the same ways I have. Yet, it breaks my heart to hear more people also have dealt with shit that I've dealt with. So, not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna cry at some point in this episode, so just be aware of that, because this is a super touchy topic for me, and I'm gonna be getting very deep and very vulnerable with you about it. And yeah, so again, this is, you should feel honored right now, because I'm sharing something with you who's listening in this moment that I don't really talk about with everybody. And I definitely don't get this deep with everybody. So, hey, best friend, you're my new best friend. Let's go. We're getting deep today. All right, let's start from the beginning. So, as a child, I wish my parents would have understood that while they had 3 kids, each of us had completely different needs in life, and I really wish they would have learned that they can love us all equally, but they can't treat us all equally. So, guys, the reason why I know that this is true, and by this I mean that they can love us equally, but can't treat us equally, I know that that is true because I used to have a friend whose mom was totally the group mom. And I loved how her mom always looked after all of us as if we were one of her own. And so one day I was sitting down with Mama Elizabeth, as we called her, and we were chatting. And she, being a mother of 5 kids, said to me, she goes, look, I love all of my kids equally, but I know that I cannot treat them all equally because what works with one kid won't necessarily work with the next kid. And especially when it comes with things like discipline, teaching them things and just understanding where they're at. Y'all, when she said this, I literally started crying. I remember this day like it was yesterday because we were having a conversation about the non-existent and past troubled relationship with my own mom. And so hearing that come from her, I was like, yes, that is how it should be. You should definitely love all of your kids equally, but you can't treat me, somebody who is diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, the exact same way that you treat my brother and my sister who do not have bipolar 2 disorder. Like, it doesn't work like that, and it never will. So hearing that from a mother figure of 5 children, nonetheless, was just very like, okay, I'm not crazy to think that I wish they would have treated us all differently. And when I say differently, I just mean they would have realized that things that they were doing, with discipline or teachings or understandings for my siblings would not necessarily translate the same for me and vice versa. I wish my parents would have recognized that they had 3 children that all needed love, attention, praise, and support. 3 kids. Not 1, not 2, but 3, and that we all needed these things equally from them. So I can recall many, many incidents where favoritism was shown in my family growing up, but it was almost always never directed towards me. For some reason, I was always the black sheep. I was always the one to receive the short end of the stick. And as an adult, I have finally begun to understand why I was singled out and treated differently. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. It really, really doesn't. And before anybody jumps and says, well, how do you know that you were actually being treated differently? Like, what if you were just feeling that way? What if it wasn't true? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, I get it. I totally get it. I spent so many hours of my life pondering, am I crazy? Am I being treated differently? Or am I just overreacting? So many hours those thoughts have gone through my head until finally, when I was in my early to mid 20s, a family friend of mine actually spoke out and told me, no, you're right. You were treated differently. It always used to piss me off when your mom would treat you differently than your other siblings. And I would always stand up for you. And here comes the tears. Because when I heard that, it was such a validating moment. It was like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. I was being treated differently. Somebody else saw it too. Somebody who was an adult at the time who could recognize these things. And it also felt so great to know that she was standing up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself. As a kid, you can't stand up to your parents. You just can't. And so that was actually such a defining moment in my early to mid 20s to just hear that, understand it, and know that my feelings were valid and that somebody was there on my side. And y'all, I've spent, equal amounts, if not more, hours in therapy over the past decade, and I really still haven't been able to fully make peace with this and heal from all of it. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to start trying. Start trying. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying this work that I've been doing and continue to put in all of the work necessary in therapy to be able to heal from this. Because, as damaging as it was, I no longer have to live a life where the damage still affects me. And that's what my healing and therapy is helping me with. So that's another topic for another day, but I just want to throw that out there for anybody else who has any of the same feelings. Just know that therapy has been very, very valuable in helping me heal from that. I wish my parents would have understood that I wasn't a bad kid. I just did bad things, and that there is a difference in these two. But y'all, equally to that, I really wish that they would have understood that I was doing bad things as my way of acting out and rebelling against how I was being treated, how I felt, all of my pent-up frustrations. I was acting out because I was hurting, you guys. Hurting. Hurt people, and hurt people will act out, and that's what I was doing. And I wish that they would have seen these actions of mine as a sign that I needed help because I was hurting, instead of just finding harsh ways to punish me because they didn't like how I was acting. I wish my parents would have not been so damn hard on me and my siblings. Y'all, I talked about perfectionism just a tiny bit in the announcements when I was talking about college today. And perfectionism was a humongous issue in our household growing up, which, again, I am still working in therapy to this day on trying to be able to fully overcome it. But my parents, God, y'all, they were so hard on us about getting good grades, about having a job, about making the right choices and who we decided to hang out with, forcing us to go to church and just trying to control every aspect of our lives. And guys, I just want to stop right now and say this to all parents who have school-aged children who might be listening right now, that being overly hard on your kids will only push them away and into the exact opposite direction that you want them to go in. Yeah, I said what I said, and I mean every word of it, because I am living proof of that. I rebelled, and I did so many things that were the exact opposite of what my parents wanted because they pushed me too hard. And also, I will go a little bit deeper on that. Because of how hard they used to push me, I push myself so fucking hard. And I give myself such a hard time when I fuck something up, or when I don't complete something like I thought I would, or I miss my own made-up deadline in my head for a fucking sewing project or something. Like, all of these are just, it stems from that. And I have dealt with my own heartache and my own, frustrations and my own guilt over made up shit that I've done to myself because of how hard I was, pushed when I was younger. And guys, I'm saying this because, they always used to say that, like, the preacher's kids were always, like, the worst fucking kids. Like, just growing up, I remember hearing people talk about that within, like, church communities, that, like, the preacher's kids were either super fucking bad and they got into drugs and all kinds of stuff, or they became, like, preachers just like their parents, right? And the ones who rebel and go do the exact opposite, it's most likely because their parents pushed them too hard. I am just saying. Just as a child of being pushed too hard and going a different way, I'm talking heavily about this because I really, really hope that those of you who are listening who have children can kind of grasp this and understand that you've got to be a bit more understanding and lenient with your kids in some areas. Not everywhere in life, but there's some places where you just don't have to push so damn hard, guys. You just don't. And lastly, for this section, I wish my parents would have been capable of showing me the love and affection that I needed as a child. So, all children need to be shown love and affection from their parents, although not all parents are capable of giving this to them. And my parents, they just weren't. And we'll go a little bit further into this later. And I don't blame them for this because I know it's not their fault. But because they weren't able to provide me with the love and affection that I needed, y'all, I sought this from outside sources. I looked for this kind of, attention and love from teachers at school, from my friends' parents, from Bible school teachers like Miss Joanne, from my grandparents, literally any adult out there who would listen to me, who would praise me for the shit that I was doing, all my little crafts or my sports I was in, whatever it was, and would give me the love and affection that I needed. Like, I gravitated towards these people. I did. So, again, I don't blame my parents, and we'll get into deeper as to why. We'll talk about this a little bit further later, why they weren't able to give this to me, but I wish they would have been able to. I'm allowed to wish for these things. So are you. So now let's go ahead and talk about when I first received my bipolar 2 diagnosis. Because back then, I wish my parents would have taken the time to learn about bipolar disorder and what it meant for me moving forward. So guys, the first person to ever do this for me is my wonderful and supportive partner, Monish. And, while it means the absolute world to me that he takes the time to learn about bipolar disorder and how to help me through it and how to help me manage it, I really, really wish my parents would have done that. Y'all, if you heard any of the last 2 episodes, me, my partner, and my bipolar disorder, then you would have heard all about how Monish and I have learned to navigate our relationship around it. And, that's because he's learned about it. That's how he and I can do this, because he has taken the time to learn. And had I had this kind of support in my home growing up when I was first diagnosed, I think I would have struggled a lot less and probably avoided so much of the heartache that I spill about in season 1 of the podcast. Like, if you have heard all of season 1's episodes, then you've heard all my heartache. And if you haven't yet, I really recommend that you go back and listen to them, because I spill these heartaches to help you avoid any of the same mistakes. With that being said, I do truly think that had my parents taken the time to learn about my disorder and help me with it, I would have avoided a lot of those. A lot. I wish my parents would have asked questions, found a support group, and figured out what they could have done better to help me as I began a new phase of life where I finally understood what felt so off about me internally, yet I still had no idea how to manage it. So this does kind of feed off the last one. But with that being said, have any of y'all seen the Netflix show Atypical? So I've mentioned it a bunch throughout all of the seasons of this podcast, basically. And I seriously love this show and all of the messages that it has within it. Guys, it is such a beautiful show. If you haven't watched it, it's 4 seasons done. So there's nothing else coming out. So all of the episodes are like 30 minutes. There's 10 per season. You can binge this in a weekend, and you'll thank me later for doing that. Actually, you can just send me a DM on Instagram and thank me later. But the show, it's about a boy who has autism, and it's his journey navigating high school and then later college. But his helicopter of a mom, Elsa, she goes to Group, which is her nickname for the support group that she attends for parents of children with autism. And each time I see her attend group in this show in any of the episodes, because y'all, I watch this on repeat, like while I'm doing my homework and stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've seen all 4 seasons. But anytime I see her attend group on the show, I always think to myself that I wish my parents would have done that for me. I wish they would have. I wish my parents would have not looked at me differently after being diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Okay, y'all, this is a big one. A very big one. And while my parents might deny that they ever did this, I am incredibly good at reading body language. And since actions speak louder than words, I knew from the moment that I was giving I knew from the moment that I was given my bipolar 2 diagnosis that my parents looked at me differently and that they would never look at me the same again. Because after this diagnosis came around, they seemed to sometimes walk on eggshells around me, as if they were trying not to step on the wrong minesweep tile and cause a fucking explosion and lose the goddamn game. Back to the minesweep analogy. I really love that if you hadn't grasped that yet. But y'all, they also thought that I was all of a sudden disabled now that I had this diagnosis. And guys, later in life, my mom literally told one of her friends, she can't move to Houston all by herself. She's bipolar. Like, those were literal words out of my mom's mouth. And thankfully, that family friend knew better and assured my mom that bipolar disorder had nothing to do with my ability to live on my own. And, family friend, if you happen to be listening, you know who you are, and thank you for always having my back. But it shouldn't have had to have been that way. It shouldn't have had to. Like, I shouldn't have been, all of a sudden, now I'm disabled because I got this mental health diagnosis, but yesterday I was fine. Yesterday I wasn't disabled. Like, it made no sense to me, and it was frustrating as a kid. And it was very sad. It was sad, y'all, to see my parents look at me differently and to think that I was broken and to think that there was something wrong with me because I had this diagnosis. It was hurtful. And, I can even still to this day picture their faces, and it sucks and it's sad. And I really, truly don't wish that on anybody else. So if you're listening and you have a child who is diagnosed with any type of mental health disorder or, mental disorder, whatever it is, I strongly encourage you to pay attention to your own body language when you're talking to them and understand that there's nothing wrong with them. They're not broken. You just have to do things a little bit differently, extra support, and that's okay. That is okay. And actually, this leads into the next one, guys. I wish my parents would have understood that having a formal diagnosis was a good thing. That knowing what the issue was for me means that we could fix it. We can fix the goddamn problem. Now that we know what the problem is bipolar 2. That's the problem. So let's fix it. Not that it meant that I was broken, because it didn't mean that I was broken. It never meant that. I'm not broken. I never have been. I just need extra support opposed to someone who doesn't have bipolar disorder. Just like, your child who might have autism. If they have autism, they just need extra support and things that are different than the other kid. Or, depression or anxiety or ADHD. They're not fucking broken. Nobody is broken because we have a mental health disorder. We just need extra help and extra support. That's it. And I might sound like I'm getting aggressive, and that's because I am. I'm going in protective mode, y'all. Because I have dealt with this feeling of feeling like I'm broken because somebody else labeled me like that, and I refuse to let anybody else be labeled and looked at differently because they have a mental disorder. I refuse to allow that. It's fucked up, and I'm not here for it. I'm not. All right, well, moving on. After all of that intenseness, now as a fully independent and emotionally intelligent adult, mind you, I wish my parents would understand that while they made many, many mistakes, that making mistakes is part of life. That it's okay to make mistakes, and that being perfect is an impossible task that is absolutely not achievable. But in the realm of mistakes, it is important to own up to them, to apologize where necessary, to ask for forgiveness if needed, and most importantly of all, to learn from these mistakes. Y'all, I am 28 years old, and if I can do these things, if I can own up to my mistakes, apologize, ask for forgiveness, and most importantly, learn from them, then, well, let's just say that I wish my parents could also hop on the bandwagon and learn these things too. Because mistakes, literally, guys, you have to make mistakes in order to do better. You have to make mistakes in order to become successful. I mean, I could quote 500 million successful people right now. Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin, Einstein, Barack Obama. Like, they've made fucking mistakes, but you learn from them, you do better, and you move on. I wish my parents would learn to love themselves the way that they deserve. Y'all, I truly believe this following statement. You can't love someone else until you love yourself first. Now, I also believe that more often than not, in order to be able to learn to love yourself, you must first have someone show you what it means to truly love unconditionally. Now, I also know that my parents don't know how to love themselves because I didn't know how to love myself until I met one of my Camp Gladiator trainers, Renee Rivellini. Oh, I'm totally going to cry again. She is seriously one of the most loving people that I have ever met in my entire life. And because of the unconditional love that she has shown me since the first moment that I met her, I was eventually able to learn how to love myself. And because I love myself, I now know what it means to love somebody else. And again, none of these things were taught to me from my family of origin. And because of that, I know that my parents don't know how to love themselves. But I truly, truly wish that they could learn this. I really, really wish that they could. And I am not in a position to be able to teach this to them. But I do hope that one day soon, someone will walk into their lives and show them unconditional love in such a strong and forceful way that they are able to learn how to do it for themselves. And this right here, guys, this is why I now, as an adult, fully understand that they just weren't capable of showing me the love and affection that I needed as a kid. It's not their fault. It's not. Nobody showed them how to love themselves. So how can they love us unconditionally and the way that we need it when they don't love themselves first? And guys, I'm not saying this to be an asshole and to put my parents down. I'm truly saying this as I want them to learn how to love themselves because they deserve it. Just like you and me. We all deserve it. We all deserve to be able to love ourselves unconditionally so then we can pour from our cup into somebody else's and pass that along to them and hopefully help somebody else learn to love themselves like how Renee helped me. Unbeknownst to her. Until she listens to this podcast, of course, which I will force her to do. I wish my parents would get the help that they need. And by this, I mean that I wish that they would both go to therapy. And most importantly, I wish that they would take therapy seriously. I truly, truly believe that everyone in this world could benefit from therapy in some way, shape, or form. And my parents are no exception to that rule. They're not. They were very secretive about their lives and their childhood growing up. And so I really am not sure what all shit they went through themselves. But I do know that they went through some shit, which means that they have some healing to do. And it's pretty fucking hard to heal on your own. I mean, take it from me, which is why therapy is so important. And I wish that they would understand this and just try it for themselves and take it seriously. And finally, I wish my parents would take care of themselves better. And by this, I mean do things that benefit them both physically and mentally. Such things like choosing to exercise daily, eating fresh, healthy foods, lots of fruits and vegetables, reading books that open their mind to new ideas and way of life, like self-help books. I have a million I've read. I would love to recommend. Meditate. Guys, just anything that would help them grow into the strong, healthy people that I know that they can be if they would just put in a little bit of the effort. Guys, everything in life, it's what you put in. So if you don't put in work, you're not going to get what you want. So I'm just saying. And I'm going to go ahead and close this episode by reminding those listening that while I wish these things would have occurred when I was growing up, I know now that it could have never happened just because, like I said, my parents just weren't capable of it. They weren't. They had their own shit going on that they were dealing with, that they were going through, that they were trying to cope with. And though I really, truly wish that they would have just found healthier coping mechanisms, such as the ones I just said, 5 seconds ago, but also just the things that I incorporate in my daily life. Because I know that these things can lead to healthier and happier lives, and I have that, and that's what I want for them. I truly, truly do. And I know that I don't have a relationship with them, and I'm not sure if I ever will again. But regardless, I wish the best. I wish them healthy, happy lives and that they learn how to create happiness and love for themselves. And I hope that one day they will do all of these things that I wish that they would do. Because, again, they deserve to find true happiness. Just like you and me. Just like you and me. It's time for What a Weirdo! Okay, y'all, so this segment is here as a way for us to normalize weird habits that we all have but don't necessarily talk about. And it's a way to create some wholesome laughter together at the end of each episode because sometimes we discuss some pretty heavy topics. So if you've been tuning into the show regularly, you have likely heard all of my weirdo habits. So now it's time to send in yours. And today we have yet another anonymous submission from the website. Oh, I'm so excited. I love these. Thank you, Anonymous. And this one reads, I can't help but dance when I'm in the kitchen. My whole family does it when they're eating, especially dessert. Okay, that's really cute. I love that one. I don't always dance in the kitchen, Anonymous. I do dance a lot, though. So I really love this. This is super cute. And they even put a little smiley face after especially dessert. This is so fun. I love it. Thank you for sending this in and sharing it. So what weirdo habits do you have? Send in your anonymous submissions by heading over to whatisheybales.com/whataweirdo. That's whatisheybales.com/whataweirdo. If you're not worried about anonymity and you want me to give you a shout out, you can also just head on over to Instagram at distressed2joyful_Bailey's Way and just shoot me a DM. I'm happy to give you credit for your weirdo habit, dude. Like, I really am. So next episode is titled Nightmares and Trauma, where we are going to discuss my nightmares, the frequency of them, when they first started. I'll probably recount one or two of them for you, and also as well as what is causing them to occur. That's the big kicker right there. What is causing all these goddamn nightmares? And if you already think you know the answer to what's causing them, then you're a smarty pants who definitely needs to make sure to tune in and not miss this episode. Because first of all, you want to hear how right you are. But also, I've done a lot of research on this topic, and I am so excited to share all of my findings with you. So it'll be good. I'm not going to creep you guys out, by the way. I'm not going to traumatize you with my nightmares. Like, don't worry. We're just going to dissect one or two, like, non-horrific ones. I don't really have horrific ones, but whatever. Just listen next episode. We'll talk more then, okay? So thank you for tuning into the show. Make sure to follow the show on Instagram at distressed2joyful_Bailey's Way and head on over to the website to check out the show notes from this episode. If you enjoy this podcast, help spread the word by leaving a rating on Spotify or writing a review on Apple Podcast. Because who knows, I just might read your review on an upcoming episode. Wink, 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 wink. Lastly, don't forget to hit that cute little subscribe button to stay up to date with all of the new episode releases. But until next time, take it easy, stay grateful, and be joyful. Bye!